Western allies will impose more sanctions on Russia in the next few days.
We're proposing a prohibition on all Russian-owned, Russian-registered and Russian-controlled aircraft.
Europe has just made a move that has shocked even the United States. The EU has shut down access to key natural resources that Russia hoped would boost its income. Russia long planned to profit from these valuable materials. Now, the EU's decision could change the conflict and send shockwaves through global markets. This unexpected step challenges old plans and raises many questions about future alliances and trade. Get ready, we are going to break down the secrets behind the EU's surprise move, the background of Russia's resource ambitions. Russia has long planned to use Ukraine's natural wealth for its own gain. For many years, Moscow set its sights on the valuable natural and industrial resources found in Ukraine. Russian leaders believed these materials could bring in huge income and support military spending. They saw Ukraine as a key area rich in hidden treasures waiting to be tapped. From the early stages of the conflict, Russia aimed to exploit several important resources. One major target was rare earth elements. These elements are used in high-tech products such as electric motors, magnets, and electronic devices. Another key resource is lithium. Lithium is essential for batteries used in electric cars and energy storage systems. In addition, Ukraine holds large deposits of uranium, which is vital for nuclear power and advanced weapons. Titanium is also high on the list, valued for its strength and lightweight, and used in aerospace and defense. Russian officials believe that controlling these resources would boost the nation's economy significantly. They expected that a steady income from resource exports would help fund military operations and modernize their armed forces. Moscow thought that securing these materials would create a stable revenue stream to support long-term goals. In simple terms, these resources were seen as a treasure chest to fill Russia's war budget. This strategy was not new for Russia. Over the years, Moscow developed plans to integrate resource control into its broader ambitions. Russian leaders counted on Ukraine's raw materials to give them an economic edge. Each ton of rare earth elements, lithium, uranium, or titanium, was viewed as an opportunity to strengthen Russia's power. They believed that steady income from these assets would help purchase advanced weapons and fund their military. Analysts have noted that this plan was central to Russia's strategy in the region. Moscow bet heavily on these natural riches. Some experts point out that Russia's focus on these resources was a key part of its wider plan to project power. Moscow invested in studies and surveys to map Ukraine's resource-rich areas. Detailed plans were made to secure mining rights and establish control over export routes. The promise of high revenues drove much of Russia's political and military strategy. This approach was seen as a way to reduce reliance on other income sources and create a self-sustaining war fund. Every discovery of rare materials was a boost to their long-term plans. Russian leaders maintained that these resources would secure a future where Moscow held greater power over the region. They planned to use money from exports to finance military technology. This funding was expected to cover costs for new equipment and weapon systems. The idea was simple. With a steady income from natural resources, Russia could sustain a long fight. Analysts continue to study these plans and their effects on trade. The high value of rare earths and other materials makes this strategy a central part of Russia's ambitions. Every single step taken in this direction was seen as a bet. These plans raise big questions about Russia's high-stake bets. What made these materials so valuable? And why did Moscow risk everything? Next, we will see how the EU changed the course of events with its unexpected action. The EU's surprise move. The European Union has taken a clear step that caught everyone off guard. The EU has moved quickly to block access to major natural resources in Ukraine. This action prevents Russia from using these materials to support its economy and military plans. EU leaders have announced new export bans and strict regulatory measures. These rules stop the flow of rare earth elements, lithium, uranium, titanium, and other valuable minerals out of Ukraine. Officials in Brussels say the move is a protective measure. They claim that by stopping exports, the EU can help weaken Russia's funding of the war. European leaders believe that protecting Ukraine's resources will help stabilize the region. For example, the European Commissioner for Trade stated, "Our goal is to secure critical materials from falling into the wrong hands." This clear message contrasts sharply with Russia's long-held plans to profit from these assets. The EU is using several methods to enforce this shutdown. First, it has imposed export bans on key minerals coming from Ukraine. Second, new regulations require strict controls on shipments. Customs authorities in EU countries are now checking all shipments of these materials more carefully. Companies that try to bypass these rules face heavy fines and legal action. These measures are designed to make sure that no resources reach Russia's market. This decision is unexpected when compared to Russia's previous strategy. For years, Moscow planned to use Ukraine's natural wealth as a steady source of income. Russia had banked on the idea that controlling these resources would help fund its military. Instead, the EU is cutting off that lifeline. The contrast is sharp. While Russia relied on a plan built over decades, the EU has chosen to act quickly and decisively. EU leaders have worked closely with Ukraine on this matter. They believe that by working together, they can secure a better future for the region. The move also sends a strong message to other countries. It shows that the EU is willing to use economic tools to support Ukraine and to counter Russia's ambitions. Several EU member states, including Germany and France, have voiced their support for this decision. They argue that protecting Ukraine's assets is essential to prevent further funding of the conflict. The reaction from the international community has been mixed. Some see the decision as a necessary step to weaken Russia, while others worry about the impact on global supply chains for critical materials. Trade experts note that any disruption in the supply of these minerals may affect prices worldwide. Still, EU officials remain firm. They are determined to maintain these measures until the situation in the region changes. With the EU shutting down access to these key resources, what impact will this have on Russia's funding? Coming up, let's discuss the immediate global and US reactions to this striking decision. Immediate reactions, global and US response. News of the EU's decision sent shockwaves around the world. The move surprised many, especially in the United States. US officials and allies expressed strong reactions to the EU's action. Major news outlets in Washington reported that the decision was unexpected and caused many experts to re-examine their strategies. Comments from US leaders show their shock. One energy advisor stated, "This was not on our radar at all." Another top senator said the move will force a fresh look at our resource policies. International media quickly picked up the story. Major European newspapers and online platforms reported that the decision was a game changer. Analysts noted that the EU's actions conflict with Russia's long-term resource plans. Many experts say that Russia had counted on these materials to finance its military and boost its economy. Now, with the EU shutting down access, Russia's strategy is under severe pressure. Some commentators pointed out that this move may force Russia to seek alternative income sources. US officials are discussing the implications in meetings and press conferences. A well-known US trade expert remarked that the decision sends a strong signal about the EU's commitment to protecting its interests. He added that the move could lead to a reshuffling of global supply chains for key materials. US allies in NATO and the European Union have also voiced their surprise. In a joint statement, a group of European ministers said they did not expect such a fast and firm step from the EU. This unexpected action has left many governments scrambling to update their policies. The initial expectations were different from what had occurred. Before this decision, many believed that Russia would continue to benefit from Ukraine's natural wealth. Instead, the EU's action has created a new reality. Markets for rare earth elements, lithium, and other valuable minerals have already shown signs of change. Some traders report that prices for these materials have begun to shift, as buyers now look for alternative sources. This development has forced companies in the US and Europe to reconsider their long-term contracts. The global response also carries political weight. Leaders in Washington and Brussels are now rethinking their approach to trade with Russia. The EU's decision may push the US to tighten its own rules on resource imports. Many experts suggest that this unexpected step might force a realignment in global alliances. Russia's reliance on these resources is now a weak spot. With the EU stepping in, Russia may have to change its funding plans and adjust its military strategies. The move is seen by many as a turning point that could affect future negotiations and trade deals. Global leaders and US officials are rethinking their strategies after this move. Now we must explore the economic ripple effects and market shifts this decision has set in motion. Economic ripple effects and global market impact. The EU's decision to block access to Ukraine's key resources is sending shockwaves through global markets. This move is causing changes in supply chains and shifting resource prices. Companies around the world are now looking for other sources of rare earths, lithium, uranium, and titanium. With fewer supplies coming from Ukraine, buyers may face higher costs. Trade flows are adjusting quickly to this new reality. In many ways, this change is like a sudden shift in a high-stakes deal. When one party drops out, everyone must quickly find a new partner. The interruption in resource flows can raise costs for manufacturers and slow production. For instance, some estimates show that prices for rare earth elements have increased by up to 10% in certain markets. This price rise puts pressure on industries that use these materials in electronics, defense, and renewable energy. Countries that once enjoyed a steady supply are now scrambling to secure alternative deals. Nations such as China and India have already started negotiating with other resource-rich countries. They aim to lock in long-term contracts to avoid sudden shortages. Trade experts warn that these changes may lead to a reordering of global market power. New agreements could replace old ones, and new alliances might be formed as a result. The shift also has a strong impact on supply chains. Manufacturers relying on these minerals must now review their sourcing strategies. Some companies are even planning to invest in new mining projects to fill the gap. For many businesses, this means a rapid change in strategy, much like a sports team that must alter its play mid-game. Everyone must adjust quickly to keep production running smoothly. The EU's move has made global markets extremely sensitive. Even a small change in supply can lead to sudden swings in prices. Investors are closely watching these shifts. Recent reports indicate that the price of lithium has risen by about 5% in response to the supply disruption. Similar trends are being observed for other key minerals. These fluctuations affect not only large industrial players, but also everyday consumers who depend on products that incorporate these materials. The economic impact is broad. Higher resource prices can increase the cost of consumer goods, ranging from smartphones to electric vehicles. This ripple effect may challenge economies, especially in countries that rely heavily on imports. Governments and businesses around the world are now rethinking their strategies and budgets to manage these new conditions. They must prepare for the long-term effects on global trade and the competitive landscape. The adjustment in supply chains and trade agreements may lead to significant shifts in market dynamics, altering how goods are produced and sold across borders. These economic shifts are changing supply chains and raising prices for key materials worldwide. Let's look at the geopolitical shifts and new alliances forming across the region. Geopolitical shifts and new alliances. The EU's decision has not only shaken markets, but may also shift alliances across the region. This move sends a clear signal that Europe is ready to protect its interests and restrict Russia's access to valuable resources. Leaders in Brussels have taken steps that force a rethinking of old ties and power balances. With this decision, the EU shows it is willing to act independently of long-standing practices that once allowed Moscow to benefit from Ukraine's wealth. Top European figures like Ursula von der Leyen and Emmanuel Macron have stressed the need to secure critical materials for the future. Their public remarks show a commitment to a unified stance. The EU now seeks closer ties with countries that share its concerns. Many expect stronger partnerships with nations in Eastern Europe. These alliances may help build a more stable defense against further Russian moves. Meanwhile, the United States watches closely. American officials have voiced surprise and are now re-examining their resource and defense strategies. This shift is also drawing attention in global circles. Countries such as Germany, France, and Italy might form tighter bonds with Ukraine and its neighbors. Such bonds could lead to a coordinated approach to trade and security. NATO, too, may adapt its plans. Recent moves have seen NATO increase its presence in Eastern Europe. Leaders from Poland and the Baltic states have called for stronger measures to counter Moscow's influence. Beyond Europe, other regions are taking notice. In Asia, major players like China and India are rethinking their resource deals. With the EU limiting access to Ukraine's materials, these nations may seek new trading partners. This change could open the door for fresh agreements and partnerships. It may also set a precedent for other resource-rich nations in Africa and Latin America to follow a similar path. These countries might decide to protect their resources more closely, even if it means shifting old alliances. The decision weakens Russia's long-standing strategy. For years, Moscow relied on income from natural resources in Ukraine to fund military spending. With the EU blocking these materials, Russia's economic plans face a serious setback. Some experts predict that this loss could amount to billions of dollars in revenue. This hit may force Russia to change its policies and adjust its support for military operations. Political analysts believe that this decisive move by the EU could lead to a long-term reordering of power. New alliances may form between nations that once had different priorities. These groups may work together to secure stable trade agreements and improve security measures. The effects of this decision could be felt for many years, as governments and international bodies begin to discuss new strategies and alliances. New alliances and shifting power balances are taking shape as a result of this move. What long-term changes will this bring to global relations? Future scenarios and new insights. Recent reports from industry analysts have provided fresh insights into the future of global resource management. Several case studies show that new digital tools and data systems are improving resource extraction and processing. These tools help companies monitor production in real time and lower costs. Experts now predict that such advances will change the way resources are handled in areas affected by conflict. Reliable sources like Reuters, Bloomberg, and leading trade journals confirm that these technological improvements may boost efficiency and cut waste in mining and refining. Looking ahead, if Russia loses access to Ukraine's valuable minerals, its economy could face severe challenges. Without the steady income from rare earth elements, lithium, uranium, and titanium, Moscow may have to cut back on military spending. Analysts warn that a loss of billions of dollars in resource revenue could force Russia to rework its entire budget. This setback may weaken Russia's ability to fund its armed forces and support long-term strategic plans. Some experts believe that without these resources, Russia's influence on global markets will decline sharply, affecting its overall economic stability. In response, the European Union and its allies are exploring new strategies to secure critical materials. They are investing in advanced mining technologies and renewable energy projects to reduce their reliance on traditional resource exports. European companies are also testing new methods to recycle and repurpose materials from old stockpiles. Several nations have begun pilot projects that combine clean energy with modern extraction techniques to boost efficiency. These strategic moves could help build a more stable and self-reliant market for key resources. The aim is to set a new course in global trade and resource management that favors sustainable practices. Economic trends also point to a shift in the playing field. Rising production costs and evolving trade routes are forcing nations to re-examine their supply chains. Technological advances in automation and digital monitoring can reduce expenses and improve safety in extraction processes. New policies are under discussion in Europe, Asia, and North America to support local industries and lessen dependence on unstable sources. These combined economic, technological, and policy trends may reshape global markets in the coming years. Future trade agreements could reflect these changes and lead to more balanced economic cooperation across regions. All these factors point to a shifting landscape in resource politics. The moves by the EU and its partners might set a new standard for how nations handle valuable natural assets during times of conflict. As countries adjust their strategies, global power balances could change significantly. While uncertainty remains, these new trends offer hope for a more stable future in resource management and trade. The impact of digital innovation, sustainable practices, and forward-thinking policies may well redefine how global resources are controlled and traded. Today, we saw how the EU's decision disrupts Russia's resource plans and reshapes global markets. What are your thoughts on the EU's move? Comment below, like, and subscribe for fascinating updates.